In this video, we're going to take a look at a green ink by Sailor, their Kobe number 13. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below, so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the green ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy. Let's get into the first writing sample. 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleed, no ghost. No feather, no spread, no shading. This is a very straightforward green ink as its color. Now we do get some tone variation by pen. The extra fine being the lightest, medium a little bit darker than that, and stub a little darker than the medium. Extra fine takes 6 seconds to dry, while medium takes 13. The scrubby is showing color variation for both of them, but we're really not seeing the shading in the writing. And the smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Lamy Safari with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleed, no ghost, no feather, no spread, no shading. Just some tone variation where the extra fine's the lightest, medium's a bit darker than that, and stub's a bit darker than medium. Solid performing though. I really have to say that this, despite not having shading, does give a very pleasant tone. The extra fine takes 13 seconds to dry, medium takes 20. Scrubby for both give no color variation, there's no shading, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we really get to see here is a nice, really lighter blue on the bottom, and it's pushing its way up into a very bright green, but above that green is another blue. Now that first one does have a slight line forming at the bottom of the lighter blue, made much darker on the second chromatography where it was allowed to dry for 10 minutes before it was put into water. And that darker line at the bottom suggests that it might be a little bit resistant, but just that part of the ink. We'll have to see about that. It is a Sailor ink after all. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleed, no ghost. No feather, no spread, no shade. No kidding, a great ink. We do get tone variation, again the extra fine being the lightest. But the stub and the medium are the same tone, both a bit darker than the extra fine. I think the difference between them is showing better on camera, but they look very much the same in person. The extra fine takes 8 seconds to dry, while medium takes 14. Scrubby for both. Well, the extra fine shows color variation, the medium shows a tiny bit, we really don't get it in the writing, and the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use it in a note-taking situation because of the amount of blowout that's occurring with the lowercase h. But you take your own risks. Water is reactivating and lifting much of this ink, but it is leaving a little bit still there on the page. Pen flush is actually doing less than water did, and that might have just been me being not as good at getting that ink or the pen flush picked up off. I might have smeared it a little bit, putting some of the ink back down. Now it really only took water to get this out of my pen, which is pretty much what I expected. 1/3 bleach solution, you're not going to need it, but it does completely remove it and turn the surrounding areas blue. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. Not done to see performance change, but just to see tone difference between them. And here's the thing that stood out to me. Medium. I love how this looks on the yellow paper in the medium nib. It is absolutely awesome as a color. Now it's not really shading, but the color is just beautiful. They're all affected slightly, made lighter, but this just has an additional vibrancy that's been added to it. Not that I would expect that you're going to use this in a professional environment. I just thought that because of the blue aspect, the yellow paper might really make a difference, and it did. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Sailor Kobe number 13 has a viscosity of 1.4, making it wet. The next writing sample is done on life paper. No bleed and no ghost. No feather and no spread and no shading. Just tone variation, where the stub and medium are the same tone and the extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the both of them. The extra fine takes 6 seconds to dry and a medium takes 13. Now the scrubbies for both do show some color variation, suggesting we could get shading, but it doesn't show up in the writing. And the smear test you may be, just maybe, able to recover if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time is 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor Kobe number 13 has an average dry time of 12 seconds, so it dries a little bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on G-Lalo paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now I was curious about how this color would wind up looking with the gray backdrop, and I don't think it looks bad. It's certainly not my favorite of how this affects its tone, but I don't think it looks bad. It holds together very well. We have no feather, no spread. We get no shading in the stub or in the medium, but we get a couple of dark spots show themselves in the extra fine, which is the lightest tone on the page, while the medium and the stub are the same darker tone. Extra fine takes 3 seconds to dry and medium takes 7. Scrubby of the extra fine shows a little color variation, and there are a couple pepperings of shading in it. The medium shows none where there is none, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor Kobe number 13, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a brown ink by Diamine, their Burnt Sienna, to keep some earth tones together. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Sailor Kobe number 13? A nice lighter green that doesn't shade as much as I would expect. It's a very interesting color, the kind of color that gets non-fountain pen users to really take notice and start asking questions. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? I think a drier pen can help lighten it up to bring out more of its shading, and I really do think it happens with a drier, broad pen, just to really show how great this ink can be, unless you're going to be on yellow paper. And go with a wetter pen because, man, it looks good. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at KWZ's Cherry.